So this is what we call stacking up.
Lots of peanut butter.
Lots of peanut butter.
So today marks the beginning of our food storage closet, our food storage pantry.
Our food storage cabin, whatever you want to call it.
So this is the next evolution or another evolution of our cabin, and that's to serve as a place for food storage.
Now there's multiple different reasons that we want to do food storage.
So the first and most obvious reason is that we're homesteading.
We're homesteaders.
So we're going to have gardens, we're going to have animals, so we need a place to store the food that we do produce. While we do have a very long growing season here in Tennessee, it's not year-round. Nope. Without a greenhouse. With a greenhouse,
which we are eventually doing.
So we do want to work on canning and preserving our own foods, and to have a place for freezers to freeze either high-quality meats that we source locally, which unfortunately will not be today's meat, and then B, to store the meats that we may process here on the property.
Now, obviously the food behind us isn't from our homestead.
Dakota's Pride isn't the Runaway Ranch's newest brand?
No, Dakota's Pride is not the Runaway Ranch's new brand. So we're a ways away from a variety of grocery stores. So we have one that's close by, but it's kind of small. So we like to go get our big box stuff and get a little bit more affordable for our canned beans and peanut butter and stuff like that.
For variety, selection, and affordability, we have to drive about 45 minutes to get all of that. Locally, it's very limited.
And if you know me, I don't want to leave the property very often.
So while the stuff behind us isn't the quality of food that we want in the future, and it isn't food that's grown here, what it's actually allowing us to do is to stock up on some food so that we do less grocery runs that are 45 minutes away. At the end of the day, that's an hour and a half of driving just to go to one of these grocery stores. So that takes away from a lot of time that we could be using here working on our garden.
Or resting.
Or resting, yeah. What's that?
What's resting?
And obviously it costs a lot of money to make that grocery run. So our goal now, we kind of have this new goal, and I know it's not going to be hit right away, but it's to stock up on the food that we need to run to the grocery stores further out of town for a month. So we're actually only going to that town once every month. The other positive of this, and I'm sure everybody at home can relate, the more you go to a grocery store, the more you buy crap you don't need.
Absolutely.
We call it getting Walmarted. When you go to Walmart with a short list and you come out, and you come out with just a handful of things that you did not go in for.
$400 and a handful of things.
Exactly. And that's when you get Walmarted. So the less we go to Walmart, the less we can get Walmarted. And one piece of this run that will actually tie a little closer into our homesteading projects here is that when we talk about canning, I have a lot of canning tomatoes that I'm growing. So I got a whole bunch of cans of crushed tomatoes by my favorite brand. These are Cento. They're just really good quality canned tomatoes that we're going to do a trial run with our new pressure canner. So I'm going to make a giant pot of this sauce, and we're going to do a trial run with this. And hopefully we don't mess up. And while this brand isn't very cheap, I would still rather mess up with this brand than I would messing up with all of the tomatoes from our garden. With those crushed tomatoes, I'm going to make marinara sauce that I'll do on our outdoor pizza oven, and I'll make tomato sauce that we will have over pastas and dishes like that. Obviously, those tomatoes are canned right now, but when I make my homemade sauce, it is at least a half-day endeavor. Yes. So it's a lot easier if I can make a giant pot of this and then get it all stored up so that I just grab it from the shelf when I need to.
And last thing is, like, when we get our chickens, I would like to start preserving some of their eggs for the winter times when they're not producing as much. So having this storage in here as well and getting used to how to kind of do it all is today's project.
So let's go ahead and stack these on the shelves. Then we're going to show you our new deep freezers, which is super exciting, and the new brewery fridge.
And then beans.
Beans.
Good for your heart. The more you eat,
the more you fart.
The more you fart.
You talk to Cass, I don't need any more excuse to fart.
He doesn't need any.
But we got lots of beans to encourage it. So if you've been following our beer making saga, this is a new Brewery Refrigerator. It's really exciting because we went out the other day and we got 2 deep freezers to power here in the cabin. And this is a fun project because we're fully off-grid here. So to have ample refrigerated and freezer space being fully solar powered and to have food storage that's done in a freezer from solar power is really exciting. But this one behind me only kicks on when it needs to meet a certain temperature threshold. So in our previous video, you watched us bottle our beer. After the video before that, we brewed some beer, and the beer in here is finishing up. We just have a few more days of its carbonation process. So during that process, you want to keep it within a certain temperature threshold. And if you see I'm in shorts and if you see a sweaty forehead, it's hot out right now. It's 82 degrees. So what we do, come up here and I'll show you. This is my temperature controller, and it's got 2 different outlets, one for heating, one for cooling. I have a tiny space heater within this freezer, and the freezer itself I actually have set on the refrigeration mode. So currently it's 71 degrees in there. It's set at 67 with a 5-degree temperature swing. So if it goes 5 degrees over 67, then it's going to turn on the refrigerator to cool it down. If it goes 5 degrees below 67, then it's going to turn on the little space heater to warm it up in there. So that keeps the beer right where it needs to be during its process.
And when you're off-grid, those are the things that you have to keep in mind because your temperatures aren't perfect. Like, it got down to almost 35 degrees the other night, so we had to keep it warm, but then now it's like 85 degrees, so we have to keep it cool. And while a lot of homebrewers may be able to put their beer into a closet and keep the temperature very moderate, that is not really the case here. We have to make sure that systems are set in place to keep our temperatures. And while in our off-grid camper, we do have AC and we do have heat, the temperatures can vary a bit. So we have to make these systems in place to make sure our beer is coming out good.
Now, before we get our meat haul unloaded and put into our new meat freezer, I want to take a second to thank Bluetti for being the sponsor of this week's video. Now, Bluetti is really changing the game here in our off-grid cabin and is really what's enabling us to consider this freezer storage. The Bluetti AC300 is powering everything that's going on here. That's currently 3 different refrigerators, occasionally a space heater, and a whole bunch more. This Bluetti unit can be charged through solar power or AC power and can put out 3,000 watts of power, and you can expand it up to 4 batteries, giving you a huge power bank. And the best part is, for its safety, this unit has a built-in BMS or battery management system that controls all of this different functionality, and that protects you and your space from overcurrent, over voltage, and overheating. This BMS is going to keep the system safe and shut things down if anything were to go wrong. Now, Bluetti has been a longtime sponsor here at the Runaway Ranch, and they're also doing some awesome work with their LAAF program, which has a goal of making sustainable energy more accessible for families in need. Alright, so it's 5:20 and I want to run a fun little test on the Bluetti. I just unplugged it from AC power and from solar. So we're going to see, with it now running, that deep freezer, occasionally the other deep freezer kicking in to keep the beer within that temperature threshold, because it is over 80 degrees out, and our mini portable fridge that we currently use as a stockpile for cheese that we get from town, and as a beer fridge. And then the last thing that it's powering is our Starlink, which is a constant about 50 watts. Tomorrow about the same time, so in 24 hours we'll check what that Bluetti's at. Alright, so it's been 24 hours since we started our test on the Bluetti AC300. We'll check in on the Bluetti app, and you'll see that we're currently pulling about 40 to 50 watts, and that the battery percentage is at 52%. So in 24 hours, our battery capacity is still just over half. which is pretty good for us. And a reminder, that is without anything charging it, so there's no solar panels going into this, there's no AC power charging it. So this shows as a food storage solution, this Bluetti AC300 with a couple batteries is truly a legitimate solution, whether you're off-grid or you're actually on-grid and have this Bluetti system tied directly into your house. And when you head over to the Bluetti website, you can see how you can use their home integration system and their Reliance sub-panel to use this system even if you are on the grid. So thanks again to Bluetti for supporting all of our awesome adventures here on the Runaway Ranch. Cheers.
Straight cruising, headed for a bruising, watching out for number one. You gotta slow down, look around you, son. Today is just today and not tomorrow.
When you dream of starting a homestead, you have this incredible vision of lush gardens, happy animals, shelves stocked with preserved, homegrown foods, and much more. But sometimes, the tasks that we share on here just feel silly. We want to be showing you that vision, those shelves abundantly stocked with pickled radishes and homegrown tomato sauce. But then we remind ourselves that we're just 9 months into the long-term realization of this dream. So this week we stock our shelves with store-bought beans and our freezers with budget cuts of meat. And it's no less beautiful, because today's actions are what we'll learn from, and what makes us one little step closer to where we're meant to be. And even when our steps may seem insignificant and our progress may seem slow, we remind ourselves of a theme that we had in all of our travels, that we have nowhere to be and all day to get there. Thanks for running away with us.